everybody, and welcome to the Jim and Sam Town Square. I'm Scott King. Jim and Sam fans know me from the Forbes articles, and I'm joined, as always, by multi-Emmy Award-winning TV producer Chris Cangilla. In this episode, recapping Week 3 of October 2023, and we are starting the show with a whopper, something not on the show, but kind of announced on Instagram, we think. Chris, Jim Norton is no longer a single man, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, thank God we didn't tape this podcast, right after the show on Thursday, because we got a whopper on Thursday afternoon and early evening. Is Jim Norton now a married man? Mr. and Mrs. Jim Norton. It seems to be true. A lot of congratulations coming from fellow comics and friends and the staff and, of course, Sam. So, yeah, tell us a little bit about how you discovered this.
I was at my daughter's soccer practice Thursday. It was kind of rainy. I wonder if they were going to have practice. But anyways, they're practicing. I'm scrolling through my phone, and I see these pictures. I see a video on Instagram with Jim and a woman, later identified, I don't know if it's by commenters or just, we know the hints that have been dropped, that Jim's girlfriend is a trans woman. And if you listen to our show, we've been on this since the very beginning. And we were suggesting this as Jim was in subtle ways, because if we didn't want to put it all out there, if Jim didn't want it all out there. So we were just kind of following his lead. But anyways, the woman is yelling at him about his kiss posters. They're saying wife. The video caption says, this is what it's like with a wife. And I'm like right there, that caption and like kind of the banter is like, oh, is this a bit? Maybe it's a bit kind of funny. Like, or I did think it was Jim's girlfriend, and there was a Twitter handle attached to the message or the post, and she had her own account and her own photos, and do a little digging. There's a photo of her with a wedding ring. They're close in a lot of photos. And yeah. And so me and you were texting, and I thought it was the real deal. And like we think, like the way he did, this is something, Jim's always saved it for the air. So we thought this would be something he's hinted at, like, yeah, maybe I will get married, as early as a couple months ago. He's been hinting at maybe getting a dog, and the guys are kind of asking him about it. So it's one of those things where, like, I'm surprised, 99% sure it's not a bit, but I'm also not too surprised because we've seen how domesticated he's gotten.
Yeah, I mean, it was so interesting to kind of unpack it all once you and I were texting all this stuff. And Jim put out another post on Instagram that had like 5 photos of him, and it's Nikki Norton, Nikki together. And it looks like some of them dated back to this summer, or going to, was it Ozzy's birthday party maybe out in Los Angeles? So that trip to Los Angeles. Yeah. So it was so cool. I'm just, we're happy.
100%.
I don't want Jim to have to feel like he has to hide any part of his life. I don't think he, really wants to. He's pretty out there on many, many things. So just to be able to call her Nikki and talk about Nikki being at home and that kind of stuff. But yeah, it hit me over the head, just this whole thing. And in Jim's bio, in his Instagram post, he says something along the lines, yes, proud husband or something like that. And then it says long story. Yes, I'm married, long story. So I hope we get that long story coming up next week. We got to, right?
I do want the long story. And the trans thing is not a surprise.
No.
What's interesting for me, I mean, seems extremely happy, and he sounded that way talking about the girlfriend back when she probably was the girlfriend. We think. We don't know if we
don't know how long he's been married. Yeah,
we do think so. But the thing for me is just like I get so into the show when I listen, going back to Opie and Anthony, where you picture stuff. So there's so many times when Jim was with other girls or escorts, and he's saying she and her. So now I'm like, like it's. And we know he did dabble the other way in terms of biological women. So it's like, that's the only question I have is like, Jim's stories. He has some epic stories. Like, is that biological woman, trans woman? That's just the way I compute things and like picture and enjoy all the stories. That's my only question now. And the other thing I'm wondering, I wanted to see what you thought about this, is I think whether it doesn't have anything to do with trans, I think whoever it was, Jim likes to keep his private life kind of private. As honest as he is, like those significant others, he's always kind of kept private, like not really naming names. Another reason I think this is the real deal. But do you think because of a caller this week, I guess we could talk about it now, kind of goes along, asked if Jim, they picked up on the hints as we did, if Jim and his girlfriend were going to have side-by-side urinals. And the guy was kind of a jerk the way he brought it up. I thought.
He was kind of a jerk, yeah.
But do you think that when that call happened and Jim kind of went back and made a joke of it and then it kind of talked about how the guy was a jerk, do you think that caller made it a little more out there? So then Jim was like, all right, I'll just make the marriage official. Or do you think it was planned this weekend before they go on the cruise that he would announce it? How do you think Jim's mind was working in conjunction with his now wife to get this out there?
That's a really good question. And I think personally, I think this is Jim's decided that he was going to announce it when he's going to announce it. He's not going to let a caller dictate to him.
I think you're
when he's going to announce something. Yeah, I think it's surprising. Maybe it did speed up a little bit because I would have assumed he's going to be leaving. He's only going to be in the show for a couple of days next week because he does go on the cruise. So you think that he'd want to announce it before the long cruise. I think he announced it specifically on Thursday because then he can kind of gauge how everybody's talking about and all the things that happen over the weekend and then release that kind of information during the show next week. That's why it was after the show on Thursday. But I think Jim decides when he wants to announce some things. There's a lot of jerk people out there that are have a lot of, they think they're funny about the comments, but Jim's in love and she loves Jim and I'm happy for it no matter what kind of relationship it is. And you can tell by that video that they are very close because that's exactly how my wife would yell at me and how my frustration would be with my wife in that video. So you got to know they're definitely they're linked, Yeah.
And I think the calls in the comments, I think it's probably fans of Jim just trying to be funny, but leave it to the professional. Because fans of Jim know, there's not a big surprise. He's talked about, this is what he's into for a long time. So yeah,
sure.
We are certainly happy for him. I feel like we could break down this down. It's such a monumental thing for little Jimmy Norton. I feel like we spent a whole show about this, but there's a lot that happened this week. It was a week where there were some guests, and I thought they were all solid guests. But something we kind of wanted to hit up top is we reached out kind of through our show last week and said, hey, we love when you guys leave comments on YouTube and social media, and we appreciate feedback. And we asked for more, and you did a poll, and it looks like we certainly got some more feedback.
Yeah, we're getting some feedback. I'd love a lot more. But yeah, we got a poll question out there on the Spotify podcast. And the question was, if Jim does leave at the end of the contract, who will Sam be paired up with? And the choices were Bob Kelly, Mike Cannon, Ian Finance, and Nicole Biggins, real name Ryan. And we got a lot of responses. And the thing that really, showed us who the possible replacement in the fans' eyes would be was Mike Cannon. And that was very interesting because Mike was a guest. And we'll talk about Mike's appearance this week. But yeah, people think it's going to be Mike Cannon. So we'll see how that comes about. And then we also asked a question. We talked about the tiresome, maybe the Madonna intro to the title open song is getting a little tiresome.
Yeah.
And we asked, what audio drop should be in the show open? And we got a couple responses on that as well. But Kenneth M. Chadwick had a great answer. He said, how about Troy's "I'm out of gas," which was his comment about, he's not the player anymore. He's out of gas. I think that was pretty fun. And he also said, and this is a big week for this kid, Cooper's giggle got to be peppered in there somewhere. He giggles in the studio and laughs. And even a caller called in this week and said, I just love that. So yeah, that was some good advice and maybe some good suggestions from Kenneth. So thank you for that. Keep on coming with the answers to the polls and the questions. We'll get to them. We got a lot of questions on YouTube of things we could do differently. Some of those things aren't possible. They want some suggestions of not doing the Actors Studio with every comic and stuff. We don't really, program or talk to the guys about what they're going to have on the show. We just talk about what's on the show. So we can't really get that to them, but I get it.
Those are great answers to the audio drop. Makes me realize that everyone's kind of as hardcore. There's a lot of hardcore fans like us. I hope it's the I'm out of gas. As much as I love Coop's giggle, I would love for them to add that. You actually, speaking of hardcore fans, you actually in your spare and subconscious time had a dream about involving the show.
It's just sad. So I've been kind of fighting a little bit of a cold. I took the COVID test. I'm negative. Just not feeling 100%. And so I had a little bit of NyQuil before I went to bed to try to make my sniffles go away during the night so I could get some good sleep. And that stuff messes with my brain, I think, because I had a dream that we were invited to Sam's house, although after that you were never found again. So we're at Sam's house for our party. Okay. Never been to Sam's house. Yeah, whatever. And just some weird stuff went on. I was at the party, and then Sam and everybody from the show, they weren't there anymore. And I'm trying to find them, walking around each room, going to the basement, whatever. I'm there with his family and relatives. And I'm so uncomfortable because they don't know who I am. And I'm like, I don't know these people. They don't know me. I feel so uncomfortable. So long story short, or long dream short, I walk outside trying to find the guys. And my son, Cal, who's like 23, is walking back with them from like the nearby park. I'm like, what are you guys doing? Oh, yeah, we're just playing wiffle ball. And then we did some pickup football games. I'm like, why wasn't I invited? I like playing those games. He goes, Dad, it wasn't my deal. So I got kind of the shaft from the Jim and Sam crew. Yeah, it was sad. And thank God it was just a dream, because if that happened in real life, I'd be very devastated.
Man, you feel like you weren't included with the guys. That's brutal. Being a fan, man, I would wake up like with the sweats.
What a weird dream. No more NyQuil for this kid.
I think let's what's the term that Jim hates when like let's break something down. I
can't remember, but I know there's many things that Jim hates.
But let's dissect that or whatever. But
sure, yeah.
Maybe we need. I almost called in this. I forgot what it was. We almost called in on something, but we need some more. Let's get some more mentions of our show. I guess Chris isn't feeling.
Kind of forgotten. Maybe that's what my subconscious is thinking. That the guys on the show have forgotten about us. We haven't heard much talk about the town square.
While we need a little support. The guys
I think it's probably my turn to call in. I just am rarely live, and so I can't really get in there. But yeah, it's my turn.
I'll shoot you the number.
There you go.
All right. So next we're gonna jump. This is, we mapped a lot of this out before the big news. We're gonna go back to Domesticated Jim. We know what's happening in his life. That's huge. 99.9% sure. And in that video, there were the kiss posters, and he was saying on the show this week, like they're just like not even the ones he isn't using or hanging. They're not even in his storage unit. They're just like all over the floor. So Nikki has to deal with this, and she was talking about it in the video. And he's also at once, I think maybe even twice in the last week or so, Jim's doing these live 3-hour auctions online. Sam said he's done them too for wrestling stuff. I would, like, if I didn't have like my kids running around, my wife like needs me to be attentive, I would do these too for like comic books. Like these 3-hour auctions sound really cool. But now that Jim's getting married, Chris, do you see this? It's not just a habit, it's more of an obsession. Do you see this like interfering with the relationship? Do you see Nikki really taking a stand and saying, all right, this has got to stop in some way?
I think the relationship is exactly when they were boyfriend and girlfriend, and now that they're married, the same. It's going to be the same, I think they thrive on that. She complains about Jim complains about her on the air, and it's fun. My wife and I argue a lot, and people, like I said before in this podcast, think that we're actually fighting, but we're just kidding around. It's just, I hate to say this, but that's our love language,
Yes.
But anyway, so he was flattening out the posters, on the ground. That's what he was using the floor of his apartment for, and she's just sick of it. And and she said, yeah, like you don't have enough of those in the video that we saw last night. And the thing is that, he wanted to do this auction while he's writing. So he's writing something new. We're not sure if it's a book or a new set or whatever.
Yeah, right, yeah.
And so he likes to have that auction while he's writing. So my question to you is, you write a ton. What do you need to do when you have to write? Do you have music in the background? Do you have anything on TV? What do you do?
I finally started writing again. I interviewed the producers for Goosebumps, and there's something before that. I haven't slept much this week. I just can't sleep this week. I don't know what it is. But no, as I started writing for Forbes again, if anyone wants to check out my Twitter, Scott King Media. But it changes. Like, I really like, in your music guy, I really like acoustic covers of pop songs. Like
while you're writing?
I'm writing. That just gets me to a relaxed space where I can just kind of tackle the story. And anyone who writes or wants to write, my advice that I've heard from much more successful writers is just start putting stuff on a page, whether it's handwritten or typing. Like just start
nonsense, whatever it is, just your thoughts,
whatever comes to your mind. And then you get your lead, and then you get to body the story, your conclusion. Then everything will just start coming. You can always fix it up. You always do rewrites. So yeah, that's my process. What's yours like?
Yeah, I'm an editor by nature. That's how I started into this business in television as a videotape editor, and I also write. I write a lot of our shows and programs and whatnot. So for me, it is like you just said. I throw out everything, just a lot of stuff, and then you just start whittling it down till you get the thoughts that you really like. But for me, when I'm working on something, And maybe it is because I was an editor. I have to have the TV on. Because in the news business, when you're editing, you have the news program on just so you're keeping up on everything. So I need TV on when I'm writing, when I'm editing. It has to be in the background. Not always up loud, but it's got to be there. It's got to be that distraction. Yeah. So yeah, it's weird. Everybody has their way of doing things.
Yeah, I've done that too. And moving along here, and I think this is why Jim is allowed to have all the posters, is because now his girlfriend wants a $24,000 bar tea trolley, and she's gotten all the new furniture, certain paint colors. So I think there's an understanding, like Jim's like, look, whatever you want within reason, but I have to have these Kiss posters in my life. So I think there's an understanding there. And do you think this bar and tea trolley very much overpriced, like an old Detoff perhaps? Do you think they're going to get that?
Yeah, I don't think that will happen, but yeah, it's a give and take, and he alluded to that. Whatever I need, it's like this much on the scale on this side, and then she gets it on this side. So he's not spending $24,000 that we know of on Kiss posters. But if he, got the opportunity to get that photo that we were talking about with all the guys in makeup, and that was what, $60,000, you better be sure that she's going to get that tea set. And then, Jim also talked about, this was funny, he found a spider. Jim's house and his, not his house, but his penthouse, if you will, is just riddled with rodents sometimes, and some, maybe not rodents, but maybe some, roaches or spiders and stuff. So he has to deal with that kind of stuff. But Jim likes to set them free. And Sam mentioned that no, he kills every spider that he has. This past summer, I was walking outside and I almost walked into this huge spider web. I have a photo of it here, or I think some video. You can't even really see the spider yet. And then I took a photo of the spider. It was huge, scared the daylights out of me. So how are you with spiders?
The big ones, you're kind of like, what's that? But you try to teach the kids to, like, if you can, put a napkin, get it outside, like Jimmy did. Yeah.
Jim also mentioned some weird habits that he has at his house is when he's snacking on food. He likes to have matzo crackers, which are those flat, very, very cool crackers that are kind of don't have a lot of taste to them. And he likes to use spray butter on them, which is just chemicals, as we found out from Montone.
He's right.
And then sometimes if he's having stew, he likes to take a spoonful of the stew and put it on the cracker and eat it. And the boys just had fun with that. I don't think it's too far out of the realm of doing something like that. What do you think?
No, I mean, just picturing him, and we know he's got the meats, carrots, and he likes. I like RX bars for a snack, but he's what's the other, just like pretzels.
Oh, pretzels, yeah, with the mustard. Yeah,
I think similar to Sam's show, I think a lot of people watch The Annoying Eater, which was a great idea. Jim should have like Crazy Old Man Eater or something, like he
crazy
just snack eater, snacks.
Right.
And God bless him if that's what he enjoys. I mean, good for him. I love that it's stew now. Spray butter, he's got to stop. Montone's right. That's not healthy. So hopefully just some stew there. And speaking of Sam, we know he loves doing these interviews with WWE superstars. He has a big penchant for the nostalgia, the WWE Hall of Famers, all the guys who came before. So he went to do an interview for Busted Open. He was just going to be on the show. And then in walks Ric Flair, the Nature Boy, who I believe Sam called the GOAT. He probably thinks he's one of, if not the best wrestlers ever, which a lot of people do. And he got to be in on that interview, which I kind of want to actually go listen to. But nobody gave him a hard time on social media about it, though, right, Chris?
No, not at all. I think there was a big fan on that. Yeah, I guess Sam went in on a Friday to do this. So, he's off on Friday. So he went back to Sirius to do the Busted Open show, and the Nature Boy was there. And someone posted on Instagram, Nature B in the house. Yeah, Jim Norton kind of trolls Sam on these things. He did it with another wrestler that Sam was in there calling him the wrong name, and just has so much fun doing that. And then, of course, during the story, I guess, and I knew this from a friend of mine in college that used to do it. I wasn't a big wrestler fan, but I guess they're called the Four Horsemen. He used to go, woo, something like that.
Yeah.
And so Jim was doing wee during the talk. Woo, just really high-pitched, weird stuff and like that. So just ruining Sam's day.
It was amazing. And because we spent so much time on Mrs. Nikki Norton, I think we'll save some of the guest breakdowns for when we talk about the guests. But yeah, I forgot if you said you watched Black Mirror or not. I always love when they break it down. It's one of my favorite shows ever. And hearing them break it down, The episodes, I agree. I kind of agree with which episodes they said were the best. Did you watch it, Chris? And what did Travis offer about?
Yeah,
Like,
I watched a few episodes. I don't know, man. Sometimes it gets too real for me and what the possibilities could be coming up, and I just like, ugh, it makes me sad, and I know I just sometimes just want to be entertained. Sometimes I don't want to really look at the horrible world, but Sam was talking about his specific episodes that he liked, and then Travis came in and said, I like shows. I want to feel miserable afterwards, and then Jim said, you should listen to our show. So the quickness of Jim is great on that. But yeah, I haven't watched too many, but I'm glad that you enjoyed it. And I think if it was something like, God forbid, if we had another shut in, it'd be something that I'd probably start from the beginning again.
I reckon if you can get past that angle,
yeah,
I agree, because I love the sci-fi of it, and I agree with what Travis said. Like, that's why my wife won't watch shows with me. She likes HGTV. I love to feel miserable, like Breaking Bad.
I'm probably more like your wife then. Yeah, exactly.
Shows where you're like Breaking Bad, or I got her to watch Sopranos. She loved it, but where there's stakes where you don't feel too great after. Sometimes you got to shower. Yeah, I love getting in the dirty with those shows. We've heard Jaden Smith breakdowns before, and I'm actually surprised Sam forgot about the one time he was super annoying and wore a Batman costume to like a Kardashian's wedding or event. But he did that, and that just goes with how annoying he was. They kind of talked about all the different annoying aspects of him in the public eye over the years. Did you have do you have a personal story with I think you were saying about
yeah, it's funny because this came about because they're talking about Jada and Will's situation. She has that new book coming out and all that kind of stuff, and they're talking about everything that's coming out from that book and their relationship. And I think they're kind of hateable, both of them. I don't like them. I think that's how the guys feel about them. So I really don't care what's going on in their lives, but I just bothers me. And I was making a note and listening to the show, and my wife heard me say, as I was making my notes, that God, they are hateable. I agree with Jim.
Yeah.
And she's like, wait, let's talk about that. I'm like, oh, I'm in trouble. But she brought up a good point. She was listening to Jada on Dax Shepard's podcast, and I guess she's had a really tough life with abuse and all that kind of stuff. Now, I don't know. I mean, for me, I'm kind of being cynical. I'm like, yeah, she had a tough life. But I guess before she made it, she had a tough life. And my wife always just said, you should probably just kind of remember, you don't know what people have gone through. You don't know what they're dealing with. So just be a little bit more sensitive. It's harder for me because I think that she's just kind of hateable. So it gets me in trouble with the wife a little bit. So maybe I should have a little better understanding.
I hear what your wife's saying, and I would say that's why you let it go when there's that one person who's kind of rude at work because you don't know what they're going through. Yeah. When with someone who's like, there's like a world war and they're just constantly in your face on TV trying to sell their book.
Yeah,
a little different, I think. And it's that celebrity thing where like they just won't go away. Like she's like Gwyneth Paltrow's conscious uncoupling.
We don't need to know what's going on in your life.
Yeah, she's like way worse than all that terminology in Gwyneth Paltrow.
And that was kind of my argument, just to wrap this up really quick, is that it's like she brought all this stuff out there and that red whatever thing on YouTube. So I mean, it's like we wouldn't have known any of it. So why you
totally? I agree. Jim revisited something that is one of the most compelling listens associated with the show ever. It happened on Opie and Anthony, where there was this guy, I forgot what they were talking about. I kind of want to go back and listen, but a caller called in named Roy Den Hollander, and Jim just wound up bashing him. He didn't agree with him. The guy sounded like a twerp and was a lawyer, I believe. And while getting bashed, he responded with, "I challenge you to a duel." Like he wanted to have a duel and shoot Jim, he was saying. And then he wound up suing Jim. And I think it was about a year of legal battles and fees that Jim had to get through, and Jim was very involved. He's, very kind of studious, reading all the court transcripts. And then you fast forward, just a few years ago, this guy, Roy Den Hollander, winds up killing a judge and I believe her son on the doorstep and then shooting himself because he had cancer. So just a ridiculous saga that you would not expect to have any involvement with this show. But I forgot why he even... there was a lawsuit because of the squatter news that they kind of
that's kind of how they
kind of a crazy thing though, right?
It was crazy, yeah. And you just kind of talked about it too. I guess you don't know what people are going through, so you should have some understanding. So you kind of don't know what mental illness people have. So when you're on the road and you want to just flip off the guy that cut you off. Just be careful, because you don't know if it's a nut out there with a gun and could do the same type of things. It's chilling when he said he wanted to have a duel with Jim and a gun, and then he committed, murder with that same gun, and murder-suicide, if you will. So that's really crazy. So I'm glad that Jim's past that. Jim's on to better things, right?
Yes, absolutely. I used to be a stereotypical Chicago driver. Since having kids, I lay off the horn quite a bit.
Yep.
For that reason. A lot of road rage out there. Troy, I think he's gotten better. He's our guy. He was really a big supporter early and still does show us some love on social media. But his Googling has gotten better, his research for the show. But there was a folly this week. He thought he found, they're talking about Trump was actually, I guess, left a surprisingly kind letter to Biden when Biden took office in the White House. And Troy found what he thought was the letter, but it didn't quite have the official sounding language, did it, Chris?
No, it didn't. I guess it's tradition for the outgoing president to leave a letter on the desk of the incoming president, just, wishing them luck and all that kind of stuff. Very, diplomatic, very, professional. And so when Troy thought he found the letter, Trump's letter to Biden was more like, you dummy kind of thing. So I don't think that was a real letter, even though probably Trump would write that. But yeah, it wasn't the right thing. So Troy has some challenges, believing the things he finds on the internet, but and they talked about this late in the show on Thursday, could he just say, you know what, Travis, you think it's good? You come over and do my job. I'll do your job. And maybe they'll switch positions next week. They've talked about it. I don't know.
I would love to see it. I think Travis has done kind of everything, but he has his follies too. There's a lot going on in the show, and I love when they start reading the letter. Like Troy only says it says, "Hey, Sleepy Joe," and it was like "F you" or something.
Yeah, it was like okay, this can't be real.
And speaking of Troy, though, big props. He has I believe it's a new NFL commercial, Black Caviar, involved with. They use their music, which we know is phenomenal. So I mean, go from being in a big Spider-Man movie to NFL commercials and gold record. Good for Troy, man.
He downplays it so much, but it is a very cool thing, and it's seen every Sunday because it's promoting their shop and their apparel shop. So good for him.
That's awesome. They were talking about speaking of Troy here. Him and Jim. We'll try to hit this quick. We got some more to get to. They're kind of like obsessed with death where they are. Jim's looking at these old photos of New York in a Facebook group. So there's another Facebook group beyond the Kiss poster auctions. And he's like looking at the people like they're not alive anymore. They died. And Troy's just talking about like, you got to enjoy your friends and, you start saying goodbye to them. He's like, you don't know, when you're going to see them. And I guess like when you're in your, late 40s and Jim in his 50s, like I guess some people with health conditions you start losing. But with Troy, who's a little younger, like Sam and Travis point out, like, dude, you still got like
half your life left, man.
More than half your life. Yeah.
It was funny. I feel the same way because I am older.
Yeah.
That it's like, wow, yeah, looking at those things, like every single person in this old film is dead. And then they talked a little bit about that one film that Peter Jackson from fame of the what are those movies again?
Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings, yeah, a lot of the stuff. The movie that he colorized from World War I. It's called "They Shall Not Grow Old," and I want to check that out because it was really neat to see. And I think when you look at that stuff in black and white, it's not real, but you see it in color, it really pops for you. So it was pretty cool.
Yes, and because of the emotional status, I guess those guys are in. They do get emotional during shows and movies. Sam and Travis do not, but a caller did call them out. They do. They said they get emotional during those last day with the puppy videos.
Oh, of course.
Those are tear jerkers. I do know. Kind of going back to Jim's big news, they also talked about getting married too early. And I took that, I want to know what you think, Chris. I took that as like too young. Like once and I think they even talked about like, that's what happens to high school sweethearts sometimes.
Yeah.
Like you're married super young, your life is way different. Go out and have a ton of experiences and then it just doesn't pan out.
Yeah, and I don't think they were alluding to Jim, only being with this person for a little while and getting married too soon, but it's too early in your youth and that kind of thing. I got married when I was 30. So yeah, or 29, 30 something. That was the right time. You get through all the crap in your life and all the single things you do, and it's better for that time. I agree.
Absolutely. And I think Jim, like it might have been a while. He might have, I know he was living with a girlfriend for a long time. It might have been a few years. Then he popped the question. So it might have been too soon. Coop has more than a few years to pay off a student loan. He committed to a 15-year plan for 140K. He's a senior in college now. That might not pan out. He might need to get some kind of assistance there. This kind of student loan college talk had us reminiscing about Montone's trip with Rob at a Hall of Fame Jim and Sam moments. They did talk about a HBO Max show. I think you are going to be watching with your wife, Chris. Is that correct?
No, I will not be watching with my wife. It's Naked Attraction, and Sam and Nicole brought that up in their little podcast. So yeah, I don't think it's something for me. I don't want to see those body parts if they're not the best body parts out there.
No, not you need the best. Yes. Moving along, X is going to charge $1 a year to post. I mean, I guess I'll pay it if it's not too hard to enter the information. Just another mind-baffling thing that Elon's doing.
Right.
One thing we were texting about is they're amazing, especially Jim's amazing take on the Susan Boyle, kind of like her video that made her rise to fame from Britain's Got Talent. And this is a break they've done before, if not on Opie and Anthony, definitely on Jim and Sam, but they dove deeper into it this time. And just a perfect example of how they take something that everyone's just kind of observing in the public eye and break it down for why it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I really loved this breakdown because I really never thought about it this way too. And especially in this age of being more, I hate to say it, woke as we're supposed to be. Yeah. They talked about Susan's Boyle's appearance, and she walks out there and sings beautifully, and they all think, "Wow, it's so amazing that she's singing." Well, why is it amazing that she's singing that way? Is that because she's not attractive? Because maybe she's overweight? So, why are they all surprised, or why do they all think that she couldn't sing, or why is the audience laughing when she came out to sing? That's just kind of mean, and that's really what was back then set up by the producers as this is okay. Everybody, all the hosts knew about it, all the judges, they knew, hey, we got somebody who's not attractive that's going to sing. Okay, we'll just pretend that we didn't know that, but why? The question to Jim, why are you guys doing this? Unattractive people can't sing,
Right. Your breakdown, Jim's breakdown is spot on. And it's like that, that's like someone's grandma. You don't just be disrespectful to somebody's grandma that looks yet
still funny how they talked about her look and her haircuts and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. I'm not gonna deny the humor.
Jim was hilarious as always. Every great example. People are mean so that then they can give someone a moment and pat themselves on the back. That says a lot about our society. Jim did they spelled out how the cruise is going to go next week for Jim and his now wife. They didn't know it was going to be his wife, but Jim likes his treats. There might be some ice cream, frozen yogurt that might make his wife not enjoy it, and Jim may get seasick, perhaps.
Yeah, those cruises are fun. I actually, the cruise I went on, I was out of commission for a day because I did get seasick. Yeah, it was not good. And I had, the patch behind your ear, and I think maybe that did it. I think it gave me too much of the medicine the other way and made me feel nauseous. But yeah, the treats. My wife used to tell me while we're on the cruise, it's 5:00, which means they do crepes at 5:00. So we got to get up and get those crepes at 5:00 crepes. So yeah, great food. Jim's going to come back 20 pounds heavier, but I'm all for it.
It'll be amazing. A cruise is on my bucket list. Never been on one. Sounds amazing. I think this kind of cruise, like Sea Talk, got them talking about Natalie Holloway, Johan van der Sloot. And that's from a Norm joke. But they broke down is Patrice's amazing bit on Johan van der Sloot. They just listened to it, talk about how good it was and how good Patrice was. Anyone wants to check that out. Travis, my wife is going to do this. He took his daughter to the Taylor Swift movie. My wife is going to take our daughter, and it's like 3 hours, but more power to her. She's making economies better everywhere she goes, everywhere her products go.
I agree with Troy on that, though. I don't want to go to a movie and hear my neighbor person sitting next to me singing and dancing. And then he said, doing a conjuring of whatever they're doing and like a witch kind of thing. But yeah, I'd wait I'm going to wait until it's released because I do want to see that concert, but I don't want to go see it with others.
I agree. I think the interesting part is like just watching the show and how she handles stuff like backstage. That's why her Netflix documentary was so good. So I'd kind of like want to study it more than like see everyone participate. They talked about Lauryn Hill a lot, and I didn't hear this. I don't know if you did, Chris, but Travis, before they even talked about that break, Travis is a wonderful gentleman on the show. He's personally helped me in my career with some stuff outside the show. So I absolutely love Travis. But his IG post bothered me. He had a very serious Instagram post at the concert saying, calling Lauryn Hill Miss Lauryn Hill and saying the Queen did such and such. I don't know if he got the ribbing he deserved on the show for that, though, did he?
Yeah, it's a little too much. You can like whoever you want to like, but if you go a little too far in the fandom, you got to get a beating. Troy did for Taylor. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. They might switch next week, which you saw, Travis and Troy. Let's get to, we just got a couple minutes here. We'll let you touch on the guests. We had Jeff Ross, Renan, Mike Cannon. I thought they're all great. It was another perfect week for me. Just a few guests, all super interesting.
Yeah, it was neat. Jeff Ross was very interesting because, he was close friends with Saget and Norm and Gilbert, and they have a great picture. So his act is kind of centered around death now, which is interesting. And he had so much to share. He had this ring from his grandfather that was made from a bolt from a German U-boat. And those German U-boats, I think, are like submarines. And that same U-boat that ring was made out of is down here at the Chicago Museum of Science and Industry here. So, and he talked about coming there. So yeah, he had some very cool things, and then some weird stories about doing stand-up in prison, and then being asked by the state to give some footage of that because there's a prisoner that didn't show remorse. It was really cool. And then of course we had Mike Cannon, and we talked about that already, how great Mike was. He told a story about setting a calendar reminder when he was an up-and-coming comic about, in 2010 you will be the biggest New York comic, and he set that calendar reminder. Well, it went off when he was handing out flyers in Times Square trying to make it as a comic still. So funny story there. Sad story about his wife having a miscarriage, but a good story he's going to be joining Chrissy D and doing the podcast with him. So awesome. And then of course we talked about how Renan, is that right? Is that how you pronounce his name? Renan. Yeah, he was really interesting, and being a Jewish comedian, had a lot to say on what's going on there. So do you have a favorite one? I guess I'll go first. If I guess I had to go first, I like Mike Cannon. He fits in well, and he was very funny talking about his whole NSYNC love and what he did as a youth. How about you?
It's tough for me. I interviewed Jeff Ross a while ago. He was super nice. I always love the roast, and those guys in that picture that he's doing a show on are my favorite comics ever. Norm, I got the right jokes for, my favorite, best comic ever. But I think this was Mike Cannon's arguably his best appearance ever on the show. And I appreciate his honesty and his tough situation with his wife. And he's, he managed to be honest and funny about that. Just an awesome appearance. I'll go with Mike Cannon.
Good choice. Good choice. What about your line of the week? Do you have one for this week?
Let's get to line of the week. We have less than 2 minutes. Mike's story about his calendar. Next show, remind me about my little Scotty story about how when I auditioned for the acting program, University of Illinois, that I did get into, I showed the dean my $100 million notebook because I would make $100 million as an actor and a writer.
Well, we still have hope for that. This podcast is going to go through the roof, man.
Oh, man. We want to hear that now or next one? Next one?
We'll
you only got a minute here. We're going to get to let's save it for next show and it'll go viral. Line of the week. What did you have for line of the week?
So for line of the week, I had Sam, and they were just talking in general about just funny things. And Sam said, "You know how I love Jim." And Jim was quick to say, "Yeah, that tent in your pants. That's how I know that you love me." So quick. So quick. How about you?
Mine was, I want to say it was Wednesday's show. It was when Mike Cannon was on. Mike Cannon was talking about, I think he made a joke about his old podcast. He was tired of carrying the show. And Jim goes, "I know how that is. Trust me," in a certain voice. Yeah, amazing Opie slam, just
exactly
right away. So perfect. And we think this episode was perfect because we had awesome Jimmy news and a great week of shows to break down. Thank you all for watching and listening. Thank you, Chris, for everything you do.
Yeah, it was a fantastic show, and we were really happy for Jim. And, welcome to the town square, Nikki.
Thanks for watching and listening to the Jim and Sam Town Square. Please remember to like and subscribe and turn on that notification bell, not Doug Bell, so you don't miss an episode.
And if you're just listening to the podcast, please leave us a 5-star review. We really appreciate it.